You find people who care, build the relationship, then ask for the donation. What happens next changes lives. Welcome, Tori, to the 20-Minute Career.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to be talking about philanthropy today. So if you could take us back to the beginning, maybe tell us a little bit about what philanthropy actually is and what played the biggest role in shaping your journey to get there.
Philanthropy means the love of humanity, and it is synonymous with fundraising. So philanthropy and fundraising are two sides of a coin. It is fundraising in any context. It's often in charities, universities and schools and hospitals. But any organization can fundraise, churches and so on. I actually started out in public relations and then marketing communications. And that was my background for several years. And then I had a break to have my kids. And when I went back to work, I realized I was at a bit of a crossroads about what do I want to do? I could relaunch myself into something completely new, or I could kind of go back to what I had done before, which was marketing. I actually did a cert in human resources before I went back to work, just to get myself back into a kind of work headspace. I was fortunate enough to have a friend who was a CEO of a large charity, and he very kindly gave me the opportunity to interview with both the head of HR and head of marketing. So in a way, that choice was made for me. And I got the marketing role because my whole resume was just all marketing communications. And so I went to work for them in a Marcom's marketing manager role. And I very quickly realized it really wasn't for me. It had changed a lot in the time that I'd been away. And I had my eye on their foundation team, their fundraising team, which to me looked like the place I really wanted to be. So after a couple of months, I was there were some very kind folks internally who sort of sponsored me to move from one team to the other. And when I landed in that foundation team and I started doing the fundraising stuff, I thought, oh yes, this is me. I'm home.
One thing that you don't realize until you start in your career is that sponsorship or mentorship element, right, can really help you get access to jobs and roles through the people that you know.
That first job back was 100% because of a relationship I had. I had to go up to him and speak to him and be brave and say, would you be open to me coming in and speaking or interviewing, at your organization? So you have to kind of take the initiative, but pulling on your network's really important. But also once I was in this role, I was very lucky to work with someone who came in and who had done that job many times before and really introduced me to the world of philanthropy. And I met lots of people through them. Just sort of introduced me to that space in a really fantastic way. So she was very much a mentor to me in that first role.
It's good that you made that decision and had the opportunity to sort of pivot and do something different. When you think about philanthropy, there's probably only so much understanding that most people would have about what you would do on a day-to-day basis. So what does your day-to-day actually look like?
So fundraising for an organization, of which philanthropy is a part, is all about finding people to talk to who care about what you do and then asking them to support the work, identifying donors using data, using relationships and networks, and then in front of those people, getting to that point in a relationship where you can actually ask them to give you money. And it is about asking for money. If you don't ask for money, you're not raising funds. The old adage is if you ask for money, you get advice. And if you ask for advice, you get money. It is very much a relationship-based approach. It's called relationship fundraising. Day to day, it is a lot of phone calls, emails, and meetings. It's very people-focused. Out and about, meeting with donors in their homes, at coffee shops, attending networking events and building relationships with people who care about the work that you are doing.
The people that you would be meeting, I guess it could be a variety ranging from people that are giving a lower amount to people that are giving quite significant amounts of money, I would imagine?
Yeah, so that's a good question. That sort of is the heart of the distinction between fundraising and philanthropy. So philanthropy focuses on that relationship fundraising, and it tends to be those higher value donations.
Yeah.
So the teams and what we call major gifts philanthropy, which is the area I work in. What is a major gift to an organization will look very different.
Yeah.
And depending on who that organization is. but it tends to be those larger gifts. And what we like to call transformational philanthropy is where you're dealing with philanthropists or people who have high net worth who can actually solve problems in the world using their own wealth and their
Yeah.
own resources. So it's sort of a case of the lower level gifts are important too, because they are a journey. If the donor starts on a journey with you, they might give a smaller gift to begin with, and then that grows into something more substantial over time once they trust you
Yeah.
more.
Okay.
So we do view it as a continuum. We always say thank you in this sort of, we value every gift of every size and every donor, no matter what they can give. But the piece that I'm personally more concerned and my team are focused on is that higher value. We deal with high net worth individuals, large philanthropic foundations and large organizations.
You're working in an area where there's probably the expectation from the organization that you need to meet targets. Can you talk us through the pressures of the role and how that manifests?
Yeah, targets definitely is a pressure, and it can look a little bit like a sales environment in some ways, but you're not selling a product at all.
Yeah.
You're dealing with a different sort of product, if you like, with the person. But yeah, for sure, you have to be comfortable with dealing with annual targets, and they can be hard. Obviously, donor expectations is a pressure, and that in contrast to the expectations internally, your CEO, CFO might have a quite different understanding of what it is that you
Of
do.
course.
So there can be some mismatch sometimes of expectations there, and particularly around the timing and the timeframes that it can take for philanthropy. But the ultimate pressure, I think, comes from the recipients or the beneficiaries who I feel, always there, and their needs are real. And they wouldn't be asking us to raise money for them if they didn't really need it. And you want to help them. So there's that constant pressure, because certainly in the nonprofit sector where I currently work, the need is bottomless. We're not going to solve poverty by the end of the financial year. It is an ongoing and kind of profound need. And sometimes we talk about wicked problems. So problems in the world that are so complex, so hard to solve. And you can only really come in on one little piece at a time and not ever feel like you're really moving the needle. But obviously, over time, things do change.
Yeah.
So there's great pressure. I feel pressure to keep working hard to serve our beneficiaries and our recipients. And then there's all the day-to-day pressures of leading a team, driving performance, monitoring performance, setting up structures and processes to make sure that things are working the way they need to.
Must be a very, very fascinating area to work in. Are you utilizing AI as part of your role to help support the way that you work? And if so, what does that look like?
Yeah, look, I'm sure like everyone, we're all starting to incorporate AI much more and more every day. And I actually had the experience just a few days ago where I got a message from one of my AI agents that said, "You've exhausted your allocation for the day." And it was only 9:30 in the morning. I was like, what? Already? I think I was using it to draft a KPI metrics tracker.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely using AI for some of those spreadsheet tools, obviously documenting. I'm starting to bring in AI to all my meetings now to summarize meeting notes and actions so that we can just be more efficient. There are some fantastic AI tools in the world of philanthropy, particularly in the prospect development space. So prospect research and prospect development is another whole career. I work very closely with our head of prospect development. They are the people who are finding owners who we could talk to, whether it's within our database or external to it. So they're kind of mining the data. And there is a whole heap of fantastic AI tools that you can use to do that. So there's a heap of AI going on in the sort of teams that surround me and my team. We probably use it more on the sort of more transactional ways. I think we're not perhaps quite there yet on being really as smart as we could be about using AI. And at the end of the day, our job is a person-to-person job. It's a conversation with a human being, and actually no AI can ever replace.
What's the part of this role that from afar people really admire and think, wow, you're making a difference? But what would make them think differently based on what you know the real parts of the role is?
I think I might flip that around actually, Jane. I think
Okay.
most people look at my job and they go, "Oh, I could never do your job." But obviously the sort of the meaningful part, the purpose-driven part is a really big component. I'm sure lots of people do look at that piece. But by far the comment I hear the most is, "Oh, I could never ask someone for money.
Okay.
Oh, I couldn't do what you do."
Yeah.
And actually, I think most people could do what I do. It's not like it's only for certain personality types or for certain kinds of people. Philanthropy is like an art and a science, the art and science of fundraising. And you can learn the science, you can learn the art too. There are certain kinds of people who perhaps would be a bit more successful. We talked about like those who have a really good interest in communication. So the ability to read and write well
Yeah.
is a really big strength. It's a big strength, and being confident to speak publicly, but also to just have curiosity for human beings, to
Yeah.
enjoy people, enjoying being with people every day.
Yeah.
That's pretty core.
Yeah.
So I think more people could do this job than think they could.
Yeah. But what is it maybe that the price of the role, I guess. So people may just think it's not for me. But
Mm,
from your perspective, what are the hard bits?
mm.
You talk to the fact that it's emotionally satisfying because you're working for a not-for-profit and there's something that you can give back. But there would be a lot of hard bits that are a part of the role as well, right?
Absolutely. It's hard. Well, asking people for money is hard
It's hard.
because
Yeah.
it's an imposition in a way. But nevertheless, finding those donors who really care about what you do, and giving yourself the chance to build the trust, that takes time and can be really challenging. We know that there are lots and lots of charities out there doing very good work, and you're competing against other organizations also doing very good things. And I don't ever want to kind of cannibalize another organization's donors. I don't want to bring them to me at the expense of them also giving elsewhere. So you're always facing that challenge. I mean, I think just the pressure to meet the targets is really tough. And sometimes things happen in the world that are outside of your control, and they can have a direct impact on your work. So if the funding environment changes globally, as we know it has in recent
Yeah.
times,
Right now.
that has a direct impact on the work that we do. And then there are other things that can really disrupt people's trust in your organization. If you have some leadership changes, or those things can be disruptive, and you kind of have to almost go back to the beginning in terms of building trust with those folks. So there is pressure around time frames. There's pressure around targets, and there's pressure around your time, because there's sort of never enough time in the day to do all the things and meet all the people. And so it can feel quite fast paced, quite intense sometimes. And you do a lot of hours outside of work too. So there's a cost to your family that you're always attending events and evening things and conferences and networking. And when the donor says, "I'll meet you here this time," you just have to go. So you sort of drop everything and go. And of course, the other things have to give in order for you to do that.
Of course it does.
Mm.
So if we look at the moments in your career that have happened where you sort of think this is exactly why I've chosen a career in philanthropy, what are they?
No, I don't think they were career moments. I think they were life moments. Um, I went overseas I took a gap year. So I finished school and I went to Africa, and I lived there and worked there for 6 months. And that experience completely changed me, because I witnessed real poverty. I saw organizations working on the ground with people doing things I could barely have conceived of. And the difference in their lives and my life was so stark. And I came back from that trip feeling really motivated to try and do something in my life that might contribute in a positive way to what I had experienced there, to help people, I guess. That was probably the most fundamental thing. I've, reflecting a bit on this conversation before we met today, I could probably take the skills I have and go into another organization and earn a lot more money than I earn, maybe have a slightly cushier life. I don't know. But would it be as satisfying or as meaningful to me? I don't think so. I don't think I could work as hard as I do and just make a corporation richer, or sell more widgets, or make rich people richer. Those things just don't do it for me at the end of the day. And I think it all stems back to that experience I had. because you can't watch children living in those incredibly difficult environments and then come back and just go, la, 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 it doesn't matter. I'll just carry on. It changes your experience. It changes your attitude to money, actually.
Absolutely does. Yeah. I think a purpose-driven career is, for those that do it, it can really give a lot back in different ways, right?
Absolutely. And we can't all be high net worth philanthropists, but we all have time, talent, we all have connections, we all have treasure of some kind that we can give and make a difference.
Yeah. Well, you know what? 20 minutes goes pretty fast and we're almost at the end. And I just want to finish off with a final fast five. Let's go. So, what has your career taught you about yourself?
I can step into discomfort more easily than other people.
What's one mistake or challenge that taught you an important lesson?
If you rush a donor, you leave money on the table. Sometimes all the money, and they give you nothing.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's not
sometimes
good. That's not a good outcome at the end, I guess.
no.
So good,
And
good lesson to learn.
yeah, they're not ATMs. They're
Yeah.
people with their own passions.
What skill do you think will matter most for young people in the future?
I would really like to see young people learning to spell and write better. I mean, this is where AI kind of really speaks into that. Obviously, it's going to fix your spelling and schmick up your writing. But when you're standing in front of a person, you have to speak. You have to be able to string together a sentence. I think the ability to communicate verbally, but also to write well. We actually write proposals for donors on the basis of the conversations that we've had. And I would like to see young people really applying back into that space and not just letting the technology do it for you.
That's some good advice. I think my daughter would agree with you 100% on that. What excites you most about where your industry is heading?
I think just the growth. We've seen huge growth in the last couple of years. When I first started in this space, there really were not so many roles available and not so many people able to do that. There's been a massive boom in going into nonprofit work as a career, and also the number of fundraisers who are out there and who understand major gift fundraising in particular. So I think it's wonderful to see more and more people out there, and still not enough though. We need more. I always want to, encourage people to consider devoting their professional life and their skills to making the world a better place.
Yes, and hopefully you've done that today. And final question. What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
This is a hard one, but I think it's about understanding that when you're in fundraising, you're not just taking from people, you're actually giving. You actually have a gift for them too. And it's that gift of making a difference in the world in the way that they really want to and feel strongly about. Inviting people into work as a partnership together to achieve something fantastic.
Tori, it's been a really interesting conversation today. Thank you so much for spending the time with me so that we can share what philanthropy is all about.
Thank you, Jane.